Brigid's Wedding, by Lady Silke. Today was the day. George had transformed himself into Brigid and felt great. Brigid was a perfect woman, and today was the day, the first day ever for her to leave her closet and go downtown. All in all, he got completely used to his new role as a woman when he dressed. As a guy, he was but a pale office guy. But as Brigid, he was stunning, gorgeous, outright sexy and desirable. Then suddenly George seemed to be decades away. Had she really been someone else? Brigid asked herself when she saw her pretty image in the mirror, and looked for an envelope for a letter she just had written. George had to post it today, and had decided that Brigid would do the job. She sealed the cover, slipped into her heels and went to the door. As it was a sunny day, she wore a mini kilt and a white blouse with it, brown nylons and black pumps. For a moment, George thought of Cecilia. Cecilia was the office beauty. All unmarried, and half of the married men in the firm were in love with her, but beside a friendly smile she never showed any interest or even some special affection for someone. Of course George adored her too. Now I became a beauty like her, Brigid smiled. And it would be open race who of us is prettier. Brigid was nervous, but then she opened the door and stepped out. Would anyone recognize the man in woman's clothes under the makeup? Would anyone see George, the office manager with a high reputation, in Brigid's clothes? He was anxious when he saw the looks of the men, but he only heard an occasional whistle or a flirtatious word. He sighed. Anything was well. He put a wiggle in Brigid's walk and went to the mailbox, all woman. And then Brigid saw Paul, just standing at the mailbox, staring at her. Any Paul in the world might have stood there. As on her way Brigid has gained enough self-confidence to pass by a stranger, give him a smile and post that letter. It was only that Paul was George's brother, and it was too late to enter a shop or side street. Why is he staring at me? Brigid thought and wished for a mousel to disappear in it. And then Paul grinned. "Hello, sweetie," he said and whistled. "Any plans for tonight?" Brigid felt 1,000 tons falling from her heart. Not even her own brother recognized her from short distance. She gave him a faint smile. "Lots of plans. But none concerning you." Paul shrugged. "What a pity, hun. You're so damn cute," and went away. She posted the letter, felt that she needed a rest and thought of an espresso. She still felt a look at her back, thought of her legs and curves and sighed, "I'd do the same in male mode." Then she turned round, facing the coffee bar. The looks came from Cecilia. Cecilia had taken advantage of the bright and sunny day, had taken a day off from office and sat outside the coffee bar, sipping on a latte macchiato. And looked at her with her big brown eyes. Brigid gulped, but then controlled herself. "She can't have any idea, I am completely transformed. Even my own brother tried to date me." She smiled at Cecilia, and Cecilia smiled back. "Well, probably I shall never be that close to her again. Why not have a little chat?" Brigid thought. Although there were 8 tables that were unoccupied, Brigid went to Cecilia's table. "Is that chair free?" she asked. "No," Cecilia replied. "It is reserved." And added with a wink and another smile, "For you." Brigid was puzzled at her friendliness. Cecilia, that untouchable block of ice that never melted under the smiles of all the charming office guys, was brightly smiling at her. And soon they were engaged in a little chat about weather, makeup brands and fashion. "And you really wear Silke's silkies?" Cecilia asked. Brigid smiled. "I like the fabric. It is so special. I really can't describe it." "With your permission, may I touch your leg to feel it?" Cecilia asked. "I can't believe it, she wants to touch me," Brigid thought. And replied, smiling, "Yes, of course. Feel free to feel." And then she touched her. When Brigid felt Cecilia's fingers gently touching the pantyhose on her leg, she thought she would explode. It was as through a fog that she heard the compliments on the smooth silky fabric, the nice color and her beautiful legs, while Cecilia's hand softly went up and down her leg. And she felt Cecilia's fingers, long after she had withdrawn them. While they talked, their knees accidentally touched under the table, and neither Brigid nor Cecilia withdrew hers. Their knees softly rubbed against each other's through their nylons. When she felt Cecilia's knee, Brigid realized that one can become aware of so many things within less than a second. Now she knew why Cecilia was so very reserved when it came to more than a smile at the office. She did not accidentally rub her knee against hers. She loved women. And Brigid realized something else. She was deeply in love with Cecilia. And Cecilia liked her, too. Cecilia suggested a little stroll. She looked stunning in her white miniskirt and yellow blouse, with her long brown hair in the wind. When they realized that by their looks they had almost caused a traffic accident while window shopping, Cecilia laughed. "Men. All the same. Let's go to the park, it seems to be less dangerous for them and us." When they found a bench in the park and sat down, Cecilia asked, "Do you remember what I said about your pantyhose in the cafe?" Brigid shook her head. "I must admit I don't," she said. "I thought so," Cecilia mused. Her fingers touched Brigid's legs through the nylons again, tenderly, caressing. It was as if a lightning went through Brigid. They both looked at each other, their eyes sank deep into each other's eyes, and they understood. When they left the bench, they walked the park path hand in hand. And George, deeply hidden inside Brigid, felt like seventh heaven. When they reached her apartment, Brigid hesitated. "Apparently we have the same size," she said. "If you want to try on a pair of Silke's silkies, we could go up and you can do so." Cecilia smiled. "I should love to do so," she said. They entered Brigid's apartment, and Cecilia was overwhelmed. It was first class, and luxurious in every point. Brigid showed her the rooms. And then it happened. When she went out of the bedroom and Cecilia just wanted to look in, they both met on the doorstep and their breasts touched each other's. Although hers were only made of silicone, Brigid almost fainted. Cecilia smiled. The first time, darling? Brigid nodded. The very first time. And then she felt the sweetness of a woman's lips upon hers, the touch of Cecilia's legs through her silk stockings on hers when they fell on the bed, two firm breasts upon her artificial breasts. I hope she does not realize they are only made of silicone, Brigid thought. But Cecilia was busy caressing Brigid's legs through the pantyhose while they kissed. Oh girl, she whispered, you know how to kiss. Almost like a man. Brigid could not help but laugh. It was meant as a compliment, Cecilia added, blushing, and they both giggled. Not more than kissing and hugging tonight, Brigid whispered. And more later. Cecilia smiled happily. You are such a caring woman, she said. In fact, you are the first one who does not want to see me naked on her bed. Or in her bed. Had she known what George wanted, she might have revised her judgment. But what George did not want was to reveal Brigid's secret. I also want it, Brigid confessed and smiled. But not today. You are great, Brigid, Cecilia replied. You are the most beautiful and most caring woman I have ever met. And she shyly added, I love you madly. From the first sight I fell in love with you. I hoped so much you would come to my table. Oh, if we only could marry. Brigid thought that her heart would explode. I love you even more, Cecilia. And I should love to marry you, too. Cecilia smiled and shook her head. You know that same-sex marriage is not legal here. But one day I shall marry a dull guy and have you as a girlfriend. Brigid smiled. At least we might engage, she suggested. What a great idea, Cecilia replied. Let us become secret brides and exchange rings. They exchanged rings and sealed it with a long and longing kiss. George could not believe it. Cecilia, his bride. Oh yes, he thought, she shall get the dull guy, and Brigid, too. When Cecilia had left the apartment, Brigid found her sweet lover's bracelet which she had forgotten. She smiled. Thank you, Han, for giving me this opportunity. The next day at the office, George found an opportunity to meet Cecilia alone. I see you are engaged, he referred to her new ring on her finger. Who is the lucky one? That's none of your business, Cecilia replied, cool as always with the guys. He smiled. Are you sure? Is it the one where you forgot your bracelet last night? And he handed the bracelet to her. She blushed deeply. How do you know? She whispered. And how did you get it? Because I am engaged, too, George said, showing his other hand with her ring on his finger. Do you still want to marry a dull guy and pretty Brigid? She looked at him, her mouth open. It would be possible, he added. And slowly she understood. But the breasts, she stammered. Silicone, as good and perfect as natural ones, he said, and involuntarily she nodded. George, you are? He nodded. You can marry a man and your best girlfriend at the same wedding, he smiled. I am Brigid sometimes. And as often as you want her to be your sweet lover. Cecilia stood up, smiled brightly and kissed him. They were married 2 months later. At her marriage, Peter, the office sunny boy and tennis champion, took her aside. "Listen, Cecilia," he frowned. "I am not jealous, at least not much. You could have had every man in this town, including me. And whom did you choose? He's a dime a dozen." "You have no idea," Cecilia replied. "No idea at all." And she turned towards her husband, who just came in. "Come, George, we are late." "Sorry, Peter, but our friend Brigid is waiting for us."